Go.
Hey, everybody. We are here talking about all things poker. Welcome to Chasing Poker with K-Pro and Cowlazars. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. What's up, everybody? Today's episode, we have a very interesting thing that happened at one of the poker rooms on the strip. We're not going to say which one. But yeah, we would just like to know what the community thinks the right call should have been. So I'll let Christy tell you what happened.
We have a situation, is how we call it, right?
I've never seen it happen before in the 12 years I've been here.
um,
It was an interesting one.
yeah, yeah. So teeing up, Mike, buy-in was it was a low buy-in. I want to say
$60
under
buy-in.
$100, 60,
Mm-hmm.
$80 buy-in. We were supposed to get 15,000 in chips.
So there were two
There were
tables for this
two
poker
tables.
tournament. I was at one table, Christy was at the other table. Same tournament.
Oh,
Okay.
right. So Mike's table appropriately got 15,000.
Mm-hmm.
My table got 20,000. And so
Everybody at the
when
table. At your
everybody at the
table.
table, yeah, and I want to say there was maybe 7 and 8, 8 and 8, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
So at Mike's table, and we text off times when we're not playing. So that'll become important later because he was like, "What's going on over there?" etc. So my table of, let's say, 7 or 8 got 20,000. His table of 7 or 8 got 15,000, but no one noticed it
Nobody noticed
for
it.
the first maybe
Including
30
the
minutes.
dealers. Yeah.
Right. So the new dealers came in at that push at about 30-minute mark. So we're on level 2.
Mm-hmm.
We have had 2 people get knocked out by that time. There was one at another table and one at my table. One of those 2 had bought back in. When they bought back in, that dealer that had pushed gave 15,000 in chips. And that is when the dealer noticed, wait a minute, you guys got the wrong amount.
Was it the dealer or was it a player that noticed and said something?
It was a deal. It
So
was
the
the
new
dealer.
dealer that sat down, that did not start the
Yeah.
tournament, noticed when he sat down. Okay.
Yeah, he sat down at the same time that the person came over and was like, "Here you go." And he said, "Did all of you get 15 or 20?" And it was pretty obvious very quickly because it was such a low amount. We got the wrong amounts. So,
here's one issue I have. The clock was never stopped, correct?
right, well, we'll get there.
Yeah. Well,
So the first thing
I've
every
never
good
seen this
dealer
happen
does,
before. Yeah.
what do they do?
Floor.
Floor.
Yeah, right. But I mean, this is a huge mistake. The tournament's been going on for 30 minutes. Somebody at my table may have been knocked out. I don't know. But the important part
Yes.
is at the table where the extra chips were given, a player's been knocked out and tried to buy back in. Was it the same player?
Well, had bought back into my table.
Right.
So one had been knocked out, one had been was already bought back in. And now here's the other thing. There was a big all-in at my table. And so there was one player that only had $800 of chips left, or 800
chips.
chips left.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a big stack and there was an 800 stack. So that becomes important a little bit later. So floor,
Yeah.
and the dealer's just looking down like, what do we do? So floor comes over and the situation is identified. It is shown that the players have different amounts between the 2 tables.
Okay.
You are exactly right.
What do you
Someone
do?
says,
I mean, that's great. I've never seen this happen before. What do you do? I'd be interested if anybody else knows that this has happened before in the past. Put in the comments down below what they did to rectify it. So what did this particular casino do?
well, the first thing that someone said is, we've been discussing this for 2 or 3 minutes. The other table keeps going. I think you text me and said, what's going on?
Clock was never stopped. Yeah.
Clock was never stopped. Now, this is about 2 minutes in. We get a good 12 to 13 minutes in as the mayhem starts. And it is truly mayhem what happens. So floor turns and says, since we already have a player out and one that's already been bought back in, everybody has to give up $5,000 in chips.
Everybody just at your table has to give up 5,000 in chips.
Right, because we were given 20 and your
right.
table was given 15.
You were given more than we. So what about anybody that already has less than 5,000 in front of them?
Well, one guy had 800 chips left.
Okay.
So what happens to him?
What was the ruling?
The floor turned and said, "You're knocked out of the tournament."
You're knocked out. See, I would be upset if that was me. I mean, it's not a play. It's not the player's mistake. I know poker is a visual game, but So I guess the real question for me is, should the players have known? So should somebody at your table, including you, should you have known they gave me too many in chips? Should you have known what the proper amount of chips is? I wonder if
Well,
anybody at that table knew and didn't say anything because they
I
realized
don't
they
think
were
so.
getting more
I genuinely
chips.
think everybody was just playing. I don't feel like they did, because here's what happened. All heck broke loose. And I will say, I got a little vocal and said, how is that fair? At least give him one chip left and make him have chip in a chair and build back his stack. Knocking him out is not okay. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The guy that, I call him the saint, the guy that had just won the big stack from
Right.
him,
A player
said,
yeah.
look, let me just put 10 grand in and let's get back to playing, because we're now 7-8 minutes in.
10 grand in what?
In chips. So
To-
everybody has to put 5 grand except for the big stack, because he's like, I just won everything from the guy that has 800 left. I will put in his 800.
Oh, you mean, no, not 800. You mean 5,000. So,
I'm
so
sorry,
the big
5,000.
stack was saying, I'll pay 5,000 for the guy that only has 800 in chips, and all that got
Right.
taken off the table. So 5,000 from every player got taken, and 10,000 from to make up for the one who only had 800 got taken out of play.
Well, that was what was offered.
Yeah,
But now, now, do you think
I
that's
still don't
okay?
know what's going on at the other table. We're just playing
Yes.
away at the other table.
Yeah, we're like now 10, 11 minutes in, and
I think they needed
now-
to pause play on both tables and pause the clock.
Yes.
First thing
Yes.
that was done wrong. Yeah, go ahead.
right. So this is where now the player says that the guy that has 800 left, he's just mad. And he's like, I'm just done with this. Like, you want to push in 10 grand? Why would you push in 10 grand? You don't, or 10,000 in chips. Why? You don't even know me. And he's like, let's just get back. He just wanted to get back to play. It wasn't big enough for him to worry about.
Right.
So he was like, let's just get back to play. Well, here's now what happens. The guy with 800 chips left
Mhm.
says, I'm here with my buddy. You guys don't know what you're doing. I'm giving my 800 to my buddy in the seat next to me, and he walks off.
The guy with only 800 in chips just said, here, give it to my friend, and walks away. Well, you
Yes.
can't do that. I know you can't give chips to another player. So what'd the floor do?
No. Floor then, I will say, we're about, I want to say 13, 14 minutes in, said stop the clock. That's when you guys
Oh, he
over there
finally did.
realized
Okay.
something was going on. So they took the 800 chips off the table and
Okay.
said those are dead.
Right.
And then they took 10,000 from the one guy. They did. And then there was one guy that had just literally, this was going to be his first hand at the table. He said, if this is how you guys deal with your poker play, I want out. I want my money back. He had not played a hand. He had just been issued to his chips.
So he had just rebought before this happened. Did not play
Not
the hand
rebought.
yet. And
He was
said,
a new player.
Oh, a new player came in because
Yep.
they have late registration. So he says,
Yep.
I don't know what's going on, but I want my money back. And
Yep.
what did the floor say?
Floor said no.
Oh, so
Floor
yeah, that's
said,
a good
you already
question.
bought in.
Can you, yeah.
We rectified this. We're done. That guy lost his mind. He said, do you really want me to escalate this? You didn't make the right call. You didn't stop the clock. You didn't this and that. And Floor turned and said, come with me, sir. We'll give you a refund.
Oh, and once the guy complained, he gave him a refund and took his chips out of play.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, I don't know what the actual ruling should be on that. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I
Well, I
understand the
was a short
chips should
stack.
come back out of play, but how do you fairly do that?
Well, my thought was, why don't, and this is what I actually said to Floor, why don't you just give the other table an extra 5,000? Because now everybody's better rather than, because I think I was at around 11. That would take me down to 5 or 6. I didn't feel like that changes my play significantly, and that could have changed my play earlier.
Right.
So I felt like, but his position was, since somebody had already been knocked out at that table, they couldn't make it fair to everybody. And one person had already bought back in. That was the reason he didn't make that call that way. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know what the right call should have been. I mean, play's gone on. There's been action. Somebody's been knocked out of the tournament. And then you realize one table has more chips. I don't know. Other than canceling the tournament and giving everybody their money back, maybe? To cancel the
Maybe
entire
starting
tournament?
over?
Or start,
Yeah.
yeah. But then that's not fair to the person who has the chip lead. I mean,
Right.
I don't know. I guess what he did is what he did. I mean, he runs that poker room. But I just don't know what the
Yeah.
right call should
Well,
have
and
been.
every part of this where he made the call and he walked off, I will give full props to the dealer. When people started getting angry again at the dealer would just say floor, and that's exactly the right call. He was just like, oh my
Well,
gosh.
yeah, the dealers
Um,
have to defer to the floor. Yeah.
yeah. So I
Um,
think because the guy volunteered the 10,000,
right.
maybe that made it okay. I just felt like even though two people had been knocked out, I felt like it was okay to say everybody gets an extra 5. Let's go from here. The people that have been knocked out, if they want to buy back in, they'll have the right amount, or they'll get the extra, the full
Right.
20 rather than the 15. That's what I felt like was right. I don't know
I
though.
don't know either. I don't know what's the fairest thing to do.
The biggest thing for me is it felt wrong to turn to the guy with 800 and say, you're out.
You're
Like you're
out.
knocked
Yeah.
out. It feels like it should be poker play that knocks someone out, not a miscalculation. So maybe leave him with a chip and a chair. The guy that nominated himself to put in 10 rather than the 5, I thought that was a good way to rectify it. I wouldn't have done that. I told him, you're the saint. We
It,
had some issues with him later, which we'll talk about, but
it
yeah,
seems to me they could have canceled it and started over. They could have
yeah.
canceled it. Well, but then I guess that's not fair. But if somebody's already knocked out, that doesn't matter if they're already gone. If somebody's already, if the same person is rebought in, I don't know if that's fair to them. Do you give them the rebuy back and then
Well,
everybody
both
starts
of those
over?
guys, there was one person that had rebought and there was one person that was knocked out but still there. You could have just said, hey, to the 16 of you, we're going to just reset. We're all going to, you
Right.
lost your last 30 minutes of play, but we're going to reset. It's the only fair way to do it. I don't know. I
I'd
don't
be
know because
interested.
they do these back to back, 5 to 8, noon
Yeah,
to
yeah,
3
yeah,
to
yeah.
5 to 8.
And
So
it's a
maybe that's
guaranteed tournament. Not that that matters, but so do you
right.
remember if me or you won or placed in this tournament? You did.
We're
You
going to
remember?
have another vlog because do you remember at the final table where some guy came over to
That was that
negotiate with
one.
you?
That was this
That was
tournament.
that
Oh, okay.
tournament.
So you did
That
place in this tournament then.
I did place in that
Okay,
tournament.
so that'll be for
Yeah.
another vlog. But yeah, I'd just like to
Yeah.
know if anybody in the comments down below, have you seen this before? Where a certain table
Yeah.
does not get the same amount of chips, and more importantly, it's not caught until 30 minutes of play and somebody is rebought back in.
Well, and I've read the vlogs on this. I have seen that this has happened, and it's always before somebody is short stacked or knocked out because they
Yeah,
catch it really early on.
right.
Has there been a circumstance when somebody is below that amount, like that 800? I think that's where it kind of changes things. And what did they do? That's what I want to.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. I mean, how does that work? If
There was
somebody was to
grumpy.
complain to the gaming commission, let's take it to the extreme. Let's say you or me wanted to complain and take this all the way to the gaming commission, file a complaint, and say this tournament wasn't fair. Only thing we'd get back is our buy-in. I mean, you're not going to get anything back other than your
Right.
$60
Right.
buy-in. But yeah, that's an interesting one.
Well, I think the bigger
Crazy.
one is there is so much competition, especially in Vegas on the strip. This is a strip casino. How do you make it so players feel like it was okay? Like, okay, there was an error. Errors happen. How do you correct it to make sure that everybody's okay? I think personally, giving everybody at the other table 5,000, and then the person that had rebought, they get the 5,000. The person that hadn't rebought, you could say, hey, if you buy back in, you'll get the full 20, or even let them come back in with 5,000 and say you got knocked out at 15, you get an additional 5,000.
The problem is that person that won that big all in, that chip lead they have is not the number of chips they should have. They have more. I understand he gave back 10,000, but what if the chips he has is more than what he should have? It's just not fair to the other table. The table I was on is playing with the right amount of chips. The whole thing is just, yeah, it's a mess. I understand they did what they did.
The only reason
and
it was
that
a mess
it,
is because people had been knocked out. That was the reason that they explained that they couldn't just, why couldn't they just give you an extra 5,000 then?
maybe that violates the tournament. I don't know because it's posted. This tournament is this amount. You get this many in chips. I don't know if they can just change it on the fly. I think everybody should have got a free buffet or something. I don't. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, yes! I needed a free buffet
Right?
for all the stress. I had stress
Yeah.
in relation to the
Well,
situation.
Since you chopped the tournament, if I remember right, I think you got a free buffet.
I did.
More than
no,
one.
I don't think I got a. No, later that day or later that night we played some cash.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think, yeah, we got a free buffet there. So.
All right, so
Anyway.
that's one of our chasing poker stories. Have you guys seen this happen before? If you did, what was the ruling? And if you haven't, what's your opinion? Anybody who is a dealer or who is a floor, we'd really like to hear somebody weigh in. What should the proper ruling have been? And as a
Yeah.
player, what I guess I don't have any recourse. What can I do? I got to go by whatever the floor says, whether I agree with it or not.
Well, you do have a recourse. You pick up your boots and you walk to a
Oh, that's
different
true.
casino and you
Different
don't go
poker
back.
room.
Like
Yeah, that's
I'm going
true.
to talk about a different casino that I think the floor made the wrong call, and I am less likely to go back to because of it, just because there's different poker rooms to choose from.
Right.
And I don't think they were wrong maliciously. I think they were too generous. And because they were too generous, it put me in a very odd situation. And we're going to talk about that on a different vlog. But yeah, I think you have recourse. Even if it's not legal, you just walk and go to a different
Well, of
casino.
course, you have a choice to not play there again, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody.
Okay.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Remember, thumbs up the video. Comment down below on what your opinion is of what happened.
Yeah. We need to
Make
hear
sure
from you.
make sure you subscribe because there's some more stories just like that coming. Somehow K-Pro attracts this stuff. I don't know how that is, but all right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.